Hey everyone, this is Imperator. I just wanted to take an opportunity to create this video highlighting one of my favorite games of all time, Rome Total War. Rome Total War 1, that is, the original. This game came out a long time ago. The graphics a little old, but it's on sale on Steam right now. The entire collection is $3.39, so figured it's a great bargain right now. I wanted to show anyone who might be interested in this some highlights of the game, why I like it, and why I think it's a classic. And in many ways, a defining game in the genre. So, I'm going to click through this. And let's get started. So, for those of you not familiar with the Total War series, actually, I want to turn down this a bit. Okay, so, for those of you not familiar with the Total War series, it's comprised of two main elements. There is the campaign map and then the battle map. So the campaign map, which I'll show you in a minute, is where you make most of your decisions, like moving troops and recruiting troops, and the battle map is where you actually, once you've moved your troops into position and attack or are attacked, that's when the battle map comes into play. So there's both a turn-based strategy component and a real-time strategy component to every Total War game. So we'll just click into the Imperial campaign. They also have options for the prologue, which is an introductory mini-campaign that highlights the rise of... It pretty much covers when the Romans kicked out their king and the beginning of the Republic. So that's a good stuff if you want to learn how to play. It's informative. If you're a veteran Total War player, obviously there's, it'll be mostly for cinematic quality rather than learning something. But if we click into the Imperial campaign, we can see all the factions. Now, there are 20 factions total in the game. Not all of them are playable out of the box. So for instance, Macedonia, I think Pontus, people like that aren't playable out of the box, and it's a really easy fix though. You just copy and paste, just Google how to unlock all factions, copy and paste the code, and then you can just unlock all of them right away from the get-go, unless you unlock all the factions manually, or if you unlock all the factions with that, like copy and paste, you will have to complete. You have to either kill someone during a short campaign to unlock an individual faction, or I believe if you beat the long campaign, the Imperial campaign, it unlocks all of the vanilla playable factions. Again, if you want to play people like Scythia, Numidia, Pontus, Macedonia, you'll have to use that editing of the game file to play as them. So, out of the gate, you can only play as 3 Roman factions. The Julii, who have a focus on sort of expanding north into Gaul, maybe Spain, and Germania, maybe get to Britain. And they're probably my least favorite Roman faction plays, honestly, just because these provinces aren't as developed and don't have as much value as some of the provinces your Roman brothers get to go to. So my favorite Roman faction to play as is the Bruttii, and the reason I love to play as them is because they have easy access to the rich provinces in Greece, Asia Minor, and Egypt. Like, they are on the eastern gate of Rome, and the east is just there's a lot more trade value and developed cities in the east than the west, just because that's kind of it's where the breadbasket was initially, and then there are a lot of rich Greek colonies, there are a lot of great empires and such that were on here, and you have the rich successor states. So they're kind of different. There are several different categories of factions. So the first one obviously is the Romans, and just to round up them, they have an emphasis on taking out Carthage. So you'll get an opportunity to take some of these rich provinces like Carthage, Thapsus, Lilybaeum, and Syracuse on Sicily. And then after that, you can round out here or kind of swing to Egypt and maybe try to steal some of the Bruttii's thunder in Asia Minor, maybe Greece, depending on how they're doing. Then there's the Senate, which is an unlockable faction. But it's not an unlockable faction. You have to do the code edit to play as them on the campaign anyway. But yeah, so the Romans are fun to play as. They have pretty strong infantry, weak cavalry pre-Marian Reform, but after the Marian Reforms, you get pretty good cavalry, like Praetorian cavalry, legionary cavalry are decent. They're serviceable. I think Praetorian cavalry are actually really good, as a matter of fact. It's just you don't get them to the late game. So pre-Marian Reform, you're going to maybe struggle against some of the cavalry other people can throw against you. The Roman campaigns ultimately culminate. It's one of the funny mechanics of the campaign that I enjoy a lot. It's really fun. Is the Senate will assign you missions throughout the game. For instance, take Carthage to the Scipii or something, and they'll reward you if you do it. And as the game goes on, you have popularity with the Senate and the people. And if the Senate, as you get more and more powerful, you might make the Senate nervous if you're not towing their line. So then they'll start sending you pretty absurd quests. If you don't leave this region, we will reveal your secret, and then the censor will, the quaestor will audit your faction for financial irregularities, and then they'll just steal a ton of money from you. And so ultimately this culminates in, the more you conquer, the more the people love you, the mob, the plebs, the unwashed masses. And once you have enough support from them, you can actually march on Rome, which will trigger the Roman civil wars, and then basically all the other Roman factions will fight you. And that is kind of the apex climax of any Roman campaign, if it's a long campaign. Because for a long campaign you have to conquer Rome and at least 50 other provinces, whereas in the short campaigns you could just eliminate some factions, hold 15 provinces. So that's the Roman factions in a nutshell. If there's interest, I'll do some more in-depth faction reviews for any faction people want. So moving on, we have the Macedonians, who are kind of one of the successor states to Alexander the Great Empire. The successor states are categorized by kind of that mixed arms doctrine that Alexander the Great used, which is powerful phalanxes and fast, hard-hitting cavalry. So the Macedonians are actually the reason I did change the code in the file in the data file to enable them to be a playable faction, because they have a great selection of troops. I love their phalanxes and hammer and handling with their companion cavalry, which are just so hard-hitting, so fast. So they're definitely fun, and they start out with easy access to Greece and Asia Minor, and you can recreate Alexander the Great's conquest if you want, and simultaneously get the Romans to back off of your turf. So definitely a fun campaign, great faction. Moving on, Egyptians, technically a successor state, although Creative Assembly took some creative liberties with this faction. Instead of being more of a, and I think they corrected this in Rome too, but instead of being a kind of like a Greek fighting faction, they ended up being like a Greek style. They ended up being more like Dance Like an Egyptian, The Mummy, like ancient Egypt, before the Greeks took over. So they're still a good faction, though. I mean, they're one of the easiest factions to play as due to their start location and troop selection. They have pretty strong troops. So moving on, Seleucids, another successor state, and they simultaneously have my favorite unit roster and my least favorite starting setup, because it's just really hard and annoying to defend this in the early game just because you're getting attacked by like Armenia, Parthia, Pontus will get involved. Sometimes the Greeks will even attack here, even though they're getting wrecked by the Bruttii. And then Egypt is your main nemesis, and they're just so powerful because they have so many highly developed cities, and they don't have anywhere else to go besides you, really. So it's definitely challenging, but once you get going, they just have a phenomenal unit roster, great cavalry, great phalanx infantry. They even get legionary knockoffs, and they get some more gimmicky units like the Scythe Chariots, which, I say gimmicky, but they're actually really good if used correctly. Sometimes they're annoying if they run amok, but they just destroy enemy infantry as long as you don't charge them head on into a phalanx or something. Like if you come in from the flanks, they're amazing. They get elephants too, which is always fun. So yeah, they're just a flexible, great roster. That pretty much wraps up the successor states, apart from like the Greeks, which I don't know if they'd technically be a successor state, but they kind of fall into phalanx, and they're in a lot of the same regions. So you'll be fighting Macedon and Greece, and the Bruttii to keep them out and try to hold on to Sicily, your foothold in Sicily. And they're in Asia Minor too. They have powerful phalanxes, but pretty poor cavalry. So and I mean Pontus, they're kind of a blend of an Eastern kingdom and a successor state, since they do get the strong phalanxes. So it's a pretty flexible army, as it says right there. So let's see. Yeah, so let's move on to Carthage. And Carthage is kind of in a category of its own. It's similar in a lot of ways to a successor state. They have great infantry at their higher levels. They have good cost-effective infantry like the Poloni infantry and the Sacred Band infantry are both really strong phalanx units. Their cavalry is pretty high up there. Like the Sacred Band cavalry is good. The long shield cavalry are dependable, cost-efficient cavalry, and this campaign's really enjoyable because you're playing out that epic Punic Wars struggle, and get a chance to rewrite history with your elephants and cavalry. And yeah, that's a very fun campaign, very good faction. Definitely recommend them. So then we kind of have the Eastern kingdoms or empires or whatever sort of theme, which is the Parthians, the Armenians, and Scythians. They're not really Eastern, but they do share some similarities since they are really heavily reliant on horse archers. The Parthians, they kind of have a difficult start in the sense they're kind of far from the action. These provinces are big, take a long time to traverse, so it's a little slow rolling, but they do have great horse archers, and cataphracts are always nice. Again, it's a little slow in the beginning, just for geographic regions. Marching through Russia and across the mountainous parts of Turkey is quite challenging. So we've already touched on Pontus a little bit. They'll be like up here, and goals there. Try to take over this rich part of the world. It's pretty much the goal of anyone with access to it, is take over this, because it's just, including Italy too. Like, this is where all the money is, and yeah, I got some Mare Nostrum action going. So yeah, let's move on to the Gauls then. So this is the first in another category, which is barbarian loosely. So barbarians are characterized by they can't build up their cities as much. They only get to a minor city level, which is, so you're missing out on the large city and huge city developments that the Romans, successor states, Greeks, etc. can get. But there's a flip side of this in that you get a lot of elite units pretty quickly since you reach them pretty rapidly. So the Gauls get, they have the best missile unit in the game, I think, in the Forester Warband, who are just pretty absurd. We might go into that in more detail. I'm not a huge fan of the Gauls just because I like cavalry. Cavalry is overpowered in this game, and they just don't really have great cavalry options. So, yeah, if you want to play, they're always in the thick of it because you got Spain attacking you, you got Britain, Germania attacking you, and you've got the Julii knocking on your door pretty much from day one. So the next barbarian faction is the Germans, Germania, which is probably my favorite barbarian faction just because they have great elite units that you can get once you hit that minor city level. And you won't be attacked by I don't think you'll be attacked by as many people as you would if you're the Gauls out the gate. Like, I think the Britons and the Gauls will attack you, but it's kind of a manageable front. And just, they get some of the best infantry in the game. Especially, they get great units like the Berserkers and the Gothic Cavalry, which are recruited from their temple lines, are just great units. So, really fun faction. Probably my favorite barbarian faction. Next are the Britons, which you see here, fanatical barbarian infantry plus Swift charioteers. They're alright. They have a safe, isolated starting position. Their unit roster doesn't excite me that much. I'm not huge on chariots, but I feel like the Germans just have a lot more diversity and eliteness in their roster. And I love Gothic Cavalry so much. They're so powerful and available so early on in the game that you'll be getting like a late game elite cavalry unit when you hit the minor city level of development with the Germans. Armenians, starting out here in the Caucasus area, Caucasian area, and yeah, they have some interesting unit types. Like, I think they have some unique cataphract units, like armored cataphract archers and camel cataphracts and a camel archer version of cataphract archers. Weak infantry though, so it's a different playstyle for sure. The Cians, there's not much to say about them. They're a pretty meh barbarian faction. They get Falxmen, but at the expense of like very little other character for the faction. And they just seem kind of like a filler faction. Them and Numidia, to me, seem like two filler factions that don't really bring that much to the game. I guess Numidia has more unit diversity in the roster than the Cians do. The Greeks we already talked about. Numidians, starting to touch on them. Basically, you start off in the crappier African provinces and have more of a skirmisher, light infantry army composition, which is challenging and not a lot of fun, in my opinion. I haven't really played as them that much. But some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm not an expert or anything. So then the Scythians, never known how to say that, but they start off like in here. And you'll notice for all of the non-playable factions, without editing the file, they don't really have a good campaign map. Some of them don't even have a description, but they're basically some shot cavalry and a lot of horse archers, and they have like no infantry. I think they get like axemen's their best infantry. I'm not sure though. But yeah, they're not very good at the infantry game. But when it comes to horse archers, I think they're the best in the game. Maybe them are the Parthians or the Armenians. But yeah, so if you want to change it up on the campaign, it might be a little slow just because they're in these wide open Russian provinces, but on custom battles I think they can be fun if you're just messing around. So the Spanish, I like the Spanish. They have a little bit different, they're a little bit different. They're technically a barbarian faction, but they have the Scutari, which were basically actually in real life the inspiration for the Roman legionaries, which are they're basically the javelin throwing, gladius armed, square rounded shield infantry. They're really flexible. They also get the Iberian infantry and Iberian cavalry, so they share Carthage's kind of trash lower tier cavalry and infantry. And then they also get stuff like the Bull Warriors, which are 2 hit point, elite unit, which is very strong. So they're fun, and you have a pretty easy starting location since you're starting on a border of the map, like an edge of the map. So you only have to worry about one direction. Then last, Thrace. Thrace is kind of a combination of barbarian infantry and hoplite phalanxes. I don't think they really get elite phalanxes, and they have limited cavalry, so they're kind of like a blend of lower barbarian and lower phalanx units. I think they can recruit Bastarnae. I'm not sure if they can. Those are pretty good. Those are basically a 2 hit point elite unit that's really good at scaring people and close combat. But yeah, so that's the faction overview. Real quick, I'm gonna hop onto the campaign map. I'll just see what my last campaign was. I was playing as the Seleucids. And yes, okay. So you see here we have the mini map, which you can click and drag to, and it's like every other Total War. It's similar to pretty much every other Total War campaign map. There are some things that I really do like about the campaign map that they didn't really take on into later versions. Ultimately, like you can see here, it's more stimulating for the trade networks and resources. Like you can see the pottery, and then the pottery resource is actually on the strategic map. The ports are clearly defined. You can even see the trade carts going out the city carrying the pottery from Armenium to, how do you say that, to Capua and Tarentum. And that's just really cool. And the same thing with the naval trade and the networks there. It's pretty sweet. And then the world wonders on the map are pretty cool, like the statue of Zeus, Colossus of Rhodes, my personal favorite of the wonders. Looks pretty sweet. And you got your pyramids, you got the Great Lighthouse, you got the Hanging Gardens in here. And these wonders do give you bonuses, so there is some incentive to get them. Like this statue of Zeus increases loyalty. The Temple of Artemis, it reduces the cost of religious buildings by 20%, and this makes buildings that take longer than 6 turns to create, that makes it create 20 or 40% faster. So that's pretty cool when you get into the late game. You start building those elite barracks or trade buildings. I think that's all the wonders they have in the game. Yeah. So it's pretty cool, and you have your agents, your spies, diplomats. They can walk around and see what's going on. And yeah, so this is where you kind of move your troops around until you get to a fight you want to take, and then it pulls up the battle map. And yeah, so I'm not gonna fight this battle because that would just be a massacre and not fun. I'm gonna switch over to set up a custom battle real quick, and I'll just do a quick one. Let's put it on hard difficulty just because I don't want to. This is the first video I'm recording and putting on YouTube, so I don't want to look like a jackass and lose on during this review. So let's do British Grassland. I like that one. I think I'm gonna do some Punic War replays. I'm gonna play as Carthage because I like the early game roster a lot more, and I want to elephant some Romans to the ground. So let's just grab our general. We'll grab some of them. Grab this dude. I think we can get away with just plenty infantry because we're gonna have a much better line, or a much better cavalry advantage. And yeah, why not? Let's do that. And for the Romans, yeah, I'm gonna demonstrate in this video how overpowered cavalry are in this game, because they are pretty crazy if you use them correctly and have an elite unit. So since this is Punic Wars, we'll do pre-Marian reforms. Conveniently for me, I'll be sure to give them some. Let's do it like the actual maniple system. So we'll have State, Principe, Triarii, and we'll get them some Equites. How much they got left? Throw in some Vilites and just wolves, maybe some gladiators, which is not a very realistic unit. We could do the pigs since I have elephants, but I think the AI isn't really good at using the pigs, so I won't do that. I'll just give them the Samnites. Okay. And spend it all. Nope. Alright. Whatever. So we're good to go. And we are going. See, yeah, that's what I was talking about with like the inaccurate Egyptian portrayal. Like that's what they went with. Like they're all wearing like pharaoh hats, which I'm not even sure the Ptolemaic dynasty wore at the time. So I don't know if Cleopatra wore that or not. I'm not a historian, but I don't think their troops were probably wearing that. So they have a bit of a hill advantage, but that's fine. We have more maneuverability, and we've got, for the most part, strong infantry. The Libyan spearmen aren't amazing, but you know they can hold long enough for our cavalry to do some damage, so I think we'll be fine. Balance power is slightly in their favor, but I'm confident with my cavalry. And my plan is I'm just going to overwhelm one of their flanks and then just kind of roll it around their back and just try and mess them up. So yeah, let's see if he's got any weak spots. So he does have a bit of Triarii, so I'm going to have to watch out for them. Triarii are the Roman spearmen, kind of one of their best options before the Marian reforms, especially with regards to countering cavalry. You can see him, you know, he's got him on the flanks, he's thinking about me. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to hit this side while it's embroiled. I'm going to come around here. And let's get these elephants in here. Let's make these, yeah, so the Roman infantry, if you got elephants, you got these cavalry, they're just aiming on hard with the buff they got on hard. Ooh, uh-oh though. I may have spoken too soon. Alright. So let's get out of there. Sorry, I'm trying to talk and at the same time for the first time. It's a little difficult. But it's fine, we'll just wrap around. They're generally being a dumbass. And the AI is sometimes, it's not that great sometimes. It's charging right into a phalanx when it's a mounted unit. Here we're going to route these Principe in a second, and we're going to turn this phalanx to Triarii. And once we get them tied up, then our cavalry can really shine. So we're just going to sort of pivot, take out these skirmishers and any dwindling his State.
Good.
I got these guys over here. Yeah, what I probably should have done is, well, I normally will alternate between just overlighting one side with cavalry, especially if I'm facing the AI, and then just punishing them in one like swoop and just like getting a mass route and then wrapping around them. Let's get this close up. Yeah, so probably should have zoomed in more earlier in the video. I do apologize for that. Give you a better feel for... Yeah, at the time, these were amazing graphics. Like, it was just... I was just in awe when I first saw this come out. Oops. Need to focus on this anymore. Yeah, so this is sorry, this is kind of a shitty performance on my part. Should have not lost this many people. Sacred band routing? What? Routing. Alright. Shit. Let's... Oh, I sent them all the way. Yeah, that's another one. I think my biggest gripe, like quality of life issue, is if a unit's chasing a routing unit and I tell it to attack another unit, sometimes it'll just keep attacking the routing unit instead of coming back. I'm not sure if that was the issue there, if I'm just sucking, but regardless, I think we got this pretty much wrapped up. Let's just get some close-ups. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Some pointy boys.
This general is the perfect enemy.
The general routing, and the Terraria routing, Sandlight Gladiators routing. Yeah, Equites aren't that great. They're just really good at cycle charging and hunting down routing units. And yeah, the Romans are really defined by subpar cavalry, and especially in the Primarian reforms. Once they get to like legionary cavalry and Praetorian cavalry, like those are decent options. And yeah, there we go. Just them in the back, the route, and I think what the last items. Let's see. They're all routing. Yeah, so while this is just wrapping up. Ooh, okay. Well, this is just wrapping up. Just talk a little bit about what I did wrong this battle. Besides not really paying that close attention to it. I should have, in hindsight, since I had so many Terraria and I knew that they had so many Terraria, I should have not tried to override one side with my cavalry, because I couldn't really get an effective charge off on either side because they had like five units of Terraria. So their flanks were pretty well covered. I should have just done a more conventional like engage and then go around and like double envelope them. Three-band cavalry are really good. Really good heavy cavalry. A must-have. The elephants are great for like breaking up masses of units. They have just such a high mass value that they just trash through things. Okay. Days coming back for more. So Romans, like in the early period, their infantry it's cost-effective and it's pretty solid. Cavalry's not great. Carthage has a nice mix of units. There isn't really a glaring weakness on their roster. So if you play like a Carthage campaign, you can use your cavalry superiority to great advantage. I think it's Long Shield Cavalry or Sacred Band Cavalry, because your elite cavalry is not tied to the Marian event like the Romans are. And you have something like Germania 2, for instance. You kind of have the same thing where you can get to your elite troops really quickly, whereas the Romans, so if you play a fast-paced campaign and you prioritize growth and you get your cities developed, the Romans can't get to their really scary options like the urban cohorts, legionary first cohorts, or even though just generic legionary cohorts. They can't get to them until after the Marian event. So I mean, if you look at the difference in the stats between the State or even the Principe with 7, 16, 2 with their javelin, and then 9, 22, 3, and then the javelin. So attack of 9, defense of 22, charge of 3. Yeah, it's a lot more, but just being able to field that on a campaign is amazing, because it's not that expensive for what you get, and on a custom battle it's very much worth it. So I don't want to get into too much detail. I just want to talk a little bit more about that Marion event. You can see here in your pre-Marion cavalry, you don't have a lot of options, but post-Marion cavalry, you get the legionary cavalry, which are dependable good cavalry, and the Praetorian cavalry. So you do get those cavalry options later on in the game. I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you found it enjoyable. If you have any questions, or if you wanted to see a more specific faction guide or explanation on anything in the game, I'd be happy to try and do my best to explain anything or provide more content. So yeah, thanks for watching, and leave a comment below if you liked it, and if you disagreed with me on anything, feel free to let me know. Yeah, but have a good day, everyone.